Welcome to Hive Mind Community Podcast, brought to you by TechSoup. Our podcast is a part of the Digital Activism program, through which we provide the civil society with knowledge, tools, grants, and networking opportunities so they can thrive. Welcome. In today's episode, we will be talking about climate impact of the internet and digital ecology. The guest on our podcast is Joanna Murzyn, promoter of digital ecology philosophy, a technological activist and hacker at heart. She is also a business consultant for sustainable digitization and designer of regenerative digital products and services. I'm very excited to be here with you, Joanna. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
I thought we could start by exploring everyday perceptions of the digital world, or rather the lack of perception, the invisibility and immateriality of the internet. While end-user devices such as laptops, smartphones, and so on are material and physically close to us, the internet itself often feels distant and abstract. At the same time, the internet seems to be limitless and infinite. Terms like Wi-Fi, cloud, AI have been a part of the language and of our lives for a while, but they still seem to be abstract and far away. And with this intro, I will go to the first question that I would really like to ask you to share with our audience your knowledge and expertise. What resources are needed for internet to be working, but mainly thinking about working online, the way we communicate, we browse, we stream, and work on the cloud. So let's say everyday office tasks that many of us have, as well the NGO sector and activists.
In terms of digital, we have two different types of a footprint. First one is operational footprint, which is associated with all the actions that we are processing. Like when you browser anything online, there is this mystical cloud, which are actually other computers that are processing your request. And here, with this footprint, we have associated the energy consumption, also the water footprint, which is the consumption of water also is associated when we trying to cooling down the whole system. Because I highly recommend at least once in your lifetime to go to the data center and, just to deep dive and see how is it from the inside. Because this infrastructure is, first of all, highly energy greedy, and also because it works like 24 hours, 7 days a week, and we need to also cool down the system. And for that, we are using water, which is in a constant circulation. But the thing here is where is the source of the water comes from. And usually, most of the data centers, they are using resources from groundwater. And there are also a lot of discussion and also, in the public sphere, also more and more activists are involved in actually banning setting up the new infrastructure because of the lack of resources like water. And that's the first layer. And then we have the second footprint, which is called embedded footprint, which is associated with the production of a hardware, like your laptop, your smartphone, everything, all the devices that allows you to, to process, to generate, and to consume data. And if we're going to look from the very, very beginning of the whole process, the whole life cycle of our electronic devices, we have to, put under consideration all the metals, minerals, again, water footprint associated with mining. Then all the footprint associated with supply chains and everything that is like required to produce and to later on sell those products. And what is really highly important as well, which is usually we do not take this aspect under the consideration, is how we dispose our all electronic devices, how also they affect the environment when they are thrown away.
I've dig a bit, but I'm very happy that we have you here as an expert in this complex situation. And thinking about this operational footprint, because we have other types of infrastructure in our modern or postmodern lifestyle, such as, for example, power stations or water supply. So those two that needs to be kind of like added for data center to go. But I was thinking about where data centers are placed physically, because this is is this something that is placed in each country, or is it placed in specific regions? Because I was thinking about, some elements of infrastructure that are kind of like common for us. But I think that data centers, I'm not sure, like, are they?
That's a really good question. Mm-hmm. And they are actually everywhere.
You see?
And we are in Warsaw right now. And guess we're in the main center, where is data center located? There's a Marriott hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Even there is a data center. Okay. And basically when a new investment is planned, the companies are looking for places with cheap energy, cheap access to the resources, and also cheap labor. So that's the main factor where this infrastructure is located. So just like I mentioned before, there is like a lot of discussion, and more activists actually are playing really important, crucial role in banning setting up a new infrastructure like data centers in their towns and in the area. And actually, there's also a lot of discussion nowadays, because in South America, there are also a lot of new investment, mostly because of the cheap energy.
Okay, so the data centers are mainly where the cheaper resources are. This is the density, I assume. Yeah. Would you share a bit about undersea cables? We hear from time to time this context, because we know that we have data centers in different parts of the world. Some are in the cities, some probably around the cities, in different places. But what about the sea?
So it's really interesting, and for me it was eye-opening. It's available online. You can check the infrastructure map of the underwater sea cables, and you can see that they are basically everywhere. And there's like also a lot of geopolitical pressure where actually this infrastructure should be put, and which countries supposed to be connected with each other. And there was a case when Australia banned having like the connection with China. So so that's a matter of kind of having control over it. And I highly actually recommend to look online for this map and to see how Europe is connected with which part of the world. And then you can see kind of a dynamics of this information, global information exchange.
For sure, we will put the link for those listeners who are curious to see it, because this is also like to see this infrastructure probably changes the way that the internet is not invisible and immaterial, but it's very material, in fact.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to point out that this is super heavy infrastructure that also really highly affect the underwater life, underwater. Yeah, and there is also really good 3D visualization where you can see like whole globe turning and see those cables there. So
when you talk about heavy, how heavy? As an
I
example?
mean, it's like one as good I remember, because this infrastructure is
changes.
And constantly there's like a maintenance. So 1 kilometer of this cable is like a few tons. So it's
Okay,
it's
massive.
Super. Yeah, it's massive. Also, because it's hard, to speak about something without the visuals. But also, I really recommend to search for a lot of resources online when you can actually see how they are diving under the water, looking for best places to set up this infrastructure.
This is interesting. I think, especially how deep the seas are, and how deep the internet goes physically. So this is quite a metaphor, I would say.
Yeah.
And thank you for introducing. Yeah.
But what is really also alarming for me, but that we don't know about the long-term effects on the environment, because we are actually destroying it by putting those cables there, and we don't know yet how in the long term it might affect underwater life, marine life, and at the end how it can affect us as well.
A lot of unknown element always comes with the new technology, of course,
and that's I think is like a really huge problem nowadays, that we bring a lot of new technological solutions, but there is lack of research, but kind of forecasting how it can affect, first of all, environment, social dynamics, economy. And this is where I bring the topic of digital ecology, by trying to make sure that this discourse about new technologies is balanced in a way that we are not only talking about the positive side, like we nowadays speak about AI only in the lines, like, oh, it's going to change us a lot, but how it's going to affect the environment, how it's going to affect the labor market, and so on, how it's going to affect the economy. So it's good to think first rather than react when something wrong will happen.
Mm-hmm. And we will continue digital ecology in a minute, but I would like to stay a bit on this, let's say, constant change in the world and the new things. As technology is constantly changing, and we obviously are aware of that, we have also the new definitions, new words that are coming to us, both to the digital world, but in terms of the climate change or the broader ecology or environmental discourse as well. And I would like to ask you, because you introduced us to the operational and embedded footprint, but I wanted to ask you about two of other terms that kind of like are around. So the digital carbon footprint and digital pollution. If you could share a bit, what are they, and what makes them different, and what do they have in common?
So first of all, I'm not a fan of a carbon footprint. I prefer to talk about the positive impact, first of all, and especially in the context of digital carbon footprint, it's not relevant. It's really hard to measure everything, really from the beginning to the really very end. And there are a lot of it's easy to measure the energy consumption of a data center, but that's just the one thing. And there are a lot of calculators available online when you can check the digital carbon footprint of your website. But I think not all the factors are taken under consideration.
They're limited.
Yeah, they are very limited. So let's say you have a website and you say, oh, my website has a really small digital carbon footprint, and you think that's enough, and you are not digging deeper and trying to look for like a really impactful solution. So that's why I think it's not a relevant implicator when it comes to measuring impact. And you also asked about digital pollution. Yeah, so that's the pollution associated with every activity that we have online. Like, let's have our mailbox as an example, because it's the easy one and everyone nowadays is using it. Almost 65% of traffic when it comes to messages that are on our mailbox is a spam. And this is the kind of, the pollution that requires infrastructure, that also lead to cognitive overload. Because when you open your mailbox and you see like a lot of new messages, this is a kind of information for your subconsciousness that I have to deal with something, I have to do something. And then eventually you feel really highly overwhelmed. And it's really hard, to focus on the really important things that you should do, especially at work. So that's the thing that, and also this whole aspect of the surveillance, right? That everything what we do online actually is being tracked. And we're living behind this digital footprint. But again, this footprint has to be stored somewhere. It again requires energy, requires resources. And also what is worth to point out in the context of data centers, that the servers where all our data is stored, their life cycle is limited. So they usually in the data centers, they are being replaced for every from 3 to 5 years, and then eventually they are ending up as a waste. And also there was really interesting research that proved that in the context of data centers, there's huge problem with something which we call dark data, which means is a data that has no value right now, but it's just being kept. Maybe in the future we're going to work on some kind of AI solution, so we will need data to train our algorithms on. So we keep it just for something, just for the case. And I think it's, I don't want to blame anyone, especially on the personal level, but I think it's a matter of being a responsible and conscious customer, especially in the context of choosing right digital product and services, which are actually do not contributing to this issue.
I'm kind of still into your perspective on carbon footprint as a definition, because this is something that is more and more visible. Some organizations or institutions are starting to push first big players, then smaller, to measure it as some way to kind of start this subject. And I wanted to ask you, what would be the better way to measure it? And also, do you see any value in terms of, for example, ESG in EU? This is the question, as our main community are those people who are highly engaged in the local communities, in NGOs, in civil society organizations and activists. But of course, they are part of the system and they are often fight for a bigger cause. But this is something that probably will affect them as well. For example, if the organization is at some scale of people, they will also have to handle it. So I am just wanted to ask you, what is it? And what would you recommend if you would have a power to kind of change it?
So the thing with carbon footprint is that it's not holistic. And then we do not we measure carbon footprint, but we forget about the water footprint. We forget about the loss of biodiversity. And so, all those organizations and especially now big corporations, they are measuring the footprint, putting it on the report, and they feel like we're done. And actually, the problem is much broader. The problem is much complex, and they are using it as a kind of I don't know how to call it. It's kind of excuse, kind of a tool that allow them to say, okay, we've done something good, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It's just a peak of an iceberg. And I think if we really want to solve the problems we are facing nowadays, we have to really dive deeper.
Okay, so I get, yes, because the naming, right? I just noted that carbon is about carbon, so it's like kind of the name shows itself that it focuses on emissions, and as internet is complex, as we already discussed, that it's not only about emission that is connected with energy, even that. I know that energy is not energy by itself, but it needs other resources to get that. So I see your perspective, and I hope that this is some step that is done and will be kind of mixed or combined with different components to do less. I always think about this very visible for maybe not now, but in my previous life, it was very visible a metaphor of car. Mm-hmm. That the classic standard car emits more, but the production of electric car is a very, very high thing. So I always think about this component kind of
because again, we are only considering a small ripped out of the context small part of the whole system, and we do not look at it as a whole. And in the context of electronic cars, first of all, mining, the resources that we are running out of. So that's the problem. That's the issue. Also, a lot of pressure, geopolitical, human. I hope we are all aware of that. And again, also the context of electronic waste that we are generating, and that with this transition, right? That electronic waste is so complex as a waste, and it's so hard, to extract and put electronic back. Again, those resources from electronic in the circulation or again back in the market. And we are producing crazy amounts of smartphones. Last year, new model of a smartphone were introduced for each week. So imagine each week there is new model of a smartphone in the market. And a typical lifespan of a smartphone is 2 to 3 years. And I think this is also the huge problem here, that we don't understand the whole system. We don't understand its complexity, and we, especially here in Europe, we don't see the long-term consequences of our lifestyle, of environmental effects of using type of a software that actually contributing to this issue, because almost 50% of when customer make a decision to change a smartphone or the computer is caused by lack of a support for the software. So also the way, what kind of a software you're using, how it is developed, also contributing to the way how long and what is the life cycle of electronic devices. It's interrelated.
Based on what you just said, I really feel that climate is as complex as the digital world, generally. Those two are very multi-layer and complex, and of course many other examples. But I'm just thinking about there's a lot of talking about the climate and the complexity and the different disciplines that need to gather and work together. And in terms of digital, I feel that we are not there yet. That's it is user and producer, developer, and the awareness.
But it's growing. I mean, I really would like to bring some hope.
Let's bring a storm and then reach out for the sun. So for sure. But about it, because you shared that from your observation and experience, there are regions which think mostly short term, but I was wondering if you observe some places where the long term thinking about technology, the production and the physicality of it is there.
Of course, I will point out the most well-known case of a Fairphone, which is a smartphone. It's a modular smartphone built with intention to last. So you can exchange the components. You can exchange. You can also change the software as well. So we make sure that if your software is not longer supported by developer Steam, then you can switch it to the open source alternatives. So that's very important. And I see a lot of these cases in at the universities where they are like on a very early stage. There are a lot of innovation with a biotechnology in a way to change the way we are producing our hardware to being biodegradable. So I see a lot of hope there, and I also see a lot of good examples in hacker communities where they are actually trying to build a software with intention to last for years and not only for a season, and also repairing and upcycling already used hardware and giving it some kind of a different context, but also extending its life cycle.
Okay, so more circular way of managing reality and everyday. Thank you for that. Also, before we go to the hope part, I was thinking, what resources are needed to kind of, because you shared some examples, how heavy are the cables or the different parts, and about like the footprint itself, the operational embedded one, and the digital pollution and its complexity. And I was wondering if you could share some, let's say, data to kind of visualize ourselves how much pollution it took, for example, as some everyday things. I don't know, some online meetings or like watching some video online or different, everyday activities, or also AI as you mentioned it, and it's really still trending, which is also important. So I was wondering if you could share and share some data with.
It's really hard to be precise.
This is fine. We don't have to be precise, but as the general,
So maybe let's stick to AI because it's a really hot topic.
Of course.
And there was a really nice research that I think it was 10 prompts and that consume like almost a half liter of the water. So you can imagine like nowadays, what is the scale of using of AI? And just to be clear, I'm a huge fan of this technology, but if it's developed with the intention to actually help us, not to create deep fakes and not to create like useless content to, just to steal our attention. And I think that's the thing, that to implement technology in a way it's supporting us as a humanity, not keeping us apart.
Thank you. Very nicely said. So thank you for that, to use the technology for humanity, not against humanity and against the world and all its layers and all its animals and plants and creatures. Please tell us.
What do you want to know?
I really want to know, what is digital ecology?
So ecology is about harmony. It's about making sure that, this relationship between software and hardware is balanced in a way, just like I gave you the example that most of the cases when people decide to throw away their hardware is because of the software not being supported. So software that support the hardware in a way to extend its life cycle as long as possible. So that's in one term, and also the digital ecosystem as a whole, how it affects the environment, how it affects like the social sphere, and also how it affects the economy, and how it affects the further development of technology. Because you can develop the product with a philosophy of being free, openly free, available, or you can develop the product which is like the code is not accessible for
proprietary software.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can like drive innovation, or you can keep it for yourself. And that's the thing, how the technology is being developed, and if it's harmonious, and if it's like benefiting us as a society and do not harm the environment in a way it's unfortunately doing it right now.
And would you define it philosophy, right? Because this is the
way of thinking about technology as, trying to keep this harmony, trying to keep this discourse in a way to understand when I, as a developer, bring some kind of a new invention, that I want to make sure that I like keep this harmony in a way. My product like contributing to the local communities. My product has a model, economical model, which actually is not like driving, crazy accumulation of a capital in the hands of one, but it's rather than more about cooperation or sharing with others. And how, if my code is open, how the code is correlated with the hardware, how it's affected, if it's accessible for other people. So yeah, there are a lot of things to consider to make sure that I'm developing digital products and services in a way they are harmonious and they are helpful.
It sounds that digital ecology is about resilience and about care, which is really, I think, resonates well, and kind of the things that we are talking about on podcast. And when you shared this example that most of the laptops or the devices generally are put it away because of the software, not about hardware. This is also like giving me the metaphors for human creatures generally, that you think it's, sometimes you feel it's something outside, but it's inside of you.
Exactly.
And you could handle it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, because it's all start with inside of us, inside of our minds and hearts. But it's, yeah.
And if you keep too long not taking care of this, you would think, okay, it's going to waste. So that practical tip is, when your computer is down, please check the software. And if you feel about buying new device, step back and think if you could do something inside of it, despite the changing it. I guess.
Yeah, that's and what I can recommend in terms of software. Try to look for open source software alternatives. There was a really excellent experiment conducted by KDE group, Eco Group in Berlin, and they have like a laboratory, whole setup where they are measuring the energy consumption of different type of a software on a different type of operating system. And if you open Windows and if you open you're writing a document in Word and you close your software, it's supposed to, like, the energy consumption is supposed to go down, but it's still on. And because the software is closed, we don't know what's happening there. We don't know why there is still like this, energy. They are still consuming energy. When it comes to open source software, it was clearly proven that when you close your open office window, it's like the energy consumption goes down. So I think the open source here is a solution, because people, especially the communities around it, they're taking care. And they are not bringing new products to the market with the intention to exploit. they want to bring some kind of new qualities. And I also really, really highly recommend as a first baby step to replace your software for reading the documents on your computer for Ocular. Ocular is an first open source software officially labeled by German government as a software. It's actually has consume not that much energy. And it's a kind of a green software. So you can, I highly recommend also read more about this label, because usually this label being granted for a physical product, but this is the first digital product that went through all the certification process. And it was granted by a German government, so we can make sure that will be.
This is PDF reader, or
what? Yes, it's for PDF and all other documents is reader. So you can baby steps, try to switch one by one, because it's also a change process, right? So you have to get used to it. It's a new interface, so. One by one, Ocular is the first really good step. Then you can slowly maybe try to switch into OpenOffice and then eventually, if your computer is really, really slowing down, you can try to reinstall your operating system for Linux, and it's going to last for a few more years. For sure, because unfortunately Windows is really highly resources greedy operating system.
I feel it's challenging, and especially that we observe, and around our community we have organizations and activists who work on international level, and in many cases cooperate with each other. And in a lot of these cases, the software and tools are proposed by bigger group. And for example, the Microsoft is so this is about mainstream. So I was wondering, this Ocular is a one step, and also do you see any in between, let's say, options? Because in some cases we have to say that it's not possible to do the revolution, but let's say how to start an evolution. Would you share some examples and maybe some other inspirational case studies, organizations, products that are there in the social movements around internet, because this is what I would say in digital ecology, actually.
So first of all, if you are in the social movement, I think it's really important to also take care of your privacy. And when it comes to using this freely open, accessible digital products from big tech companies, unfortunately, when you are using them, when you are inside of their ecosystem, you are, because I'm not using them anymore, being ripped off from your IP. Whatever you type in Chrome is actually owned by them. Whatever is on your Gmail mailbox, you don't own. You use your ownership of your knowledge, of your thoughts, of your dreams, imagination, and this information, your knowledge, your perception, everything what you put inside those documents is nowadays being used for training AI. So this is, I think, is a really really important aspect to point out, that it's also about extractivism of our knowledge, extractivism of our way of thinking, of our imagination, for the sake of having an access to the tools that we also can have for free. But it requires a bit getting through the process of changing your expectation for your tools and for what kind of functionalities they have. Because open source is not, they don't have that huge budget. And, their interfaces, they are not that much advanced, but they are free and they are taking care of your privacy. So I think that's also important aspect of worth mentioning.
Yes, for sure. And thank you for making the perspective wider and broader, because I think this is very important, like to discuss and to kind of be aware. And I'm thinking that this is the situation of not black and white, not 101010 as some old code situation, just as the internet itself and the revolution proposed some things that made less pollution in terms of the previous activity, but of course we have new challenges and unexpected. And the same with AI. I would think that of course this is about privacy, but this is also about bias and about visibility and about the influence of this, because the one thing is that we are sharing the data in terms of our privacy, but the second part is, if, for example, minorities would go to open source, they will not be visible in this algorithm, and even they are not now, because the data sets are mainly from the global north, and this is the also challenge, I would say. So this is the complex situation, but still it is good to have some hope. And you've already shared some tools and some examples of how to act, and I would like to ask you how to be more resilient, like step by step, more sustainable in NGO or activists' everyday work. Of course, remembering about the fact that some activity has to be held online, right? And some activism need to be placed online.
Okay, so if you are an activist and you want to spread any kind of a message, because usually people, what they do, they go on Facebook, on Instagram, and they post there, setting up a new profile. But the thing is that we lose ownership of this data. So I think it's really important, when you have really important message to say, to also keep in mind to have your own medium to take care of it. So it is resilient in a way that no one would take it off, because sometimes, there are a lot of cases when some kind of a profiles, they have some uncomfortable message which are being banned at the end. So you're losing your message and your community as well. And that's the one thing. And secondly, I really highly recommend to switching from all Google products to more ethical alternatives. Starting from cleaning up your mailbox, because then eventually it will be much easier for you to switch into the different provider. And then you can also consider to use alternatives for online documents exchange, which is CryptPad. .fr. You can have access to 2 gigabytes for free. And it's also provide end-to-end encryption from the browser, so all your documents are secured. And what else? I think it's also about. I also have this program of changing your relationship with your smartphone. My smartphone is I'm using it already for 9 years, and it's still on. It's a bit slower, but it's fine. I have a lot of patience. So, and on this personal level, it's good to look through settings on your smartphone and check what type of data you're given access to your apps, and switch off if you are given access to your contacts, to the location, because the location-based apps, they are super energy greedy because they are constantly in sending and receiving. So it's very highly intense. And secondly, you can try to, as a next step, also of course delete all the apps that you are not using, but try not to delete it just like that. But first, delete your account inside if it's anything there. Try to first clean your data and then delete the app. And then you can go even further by taking care of your notification you have on your smartphone. And then turn off, first of all, the sound, because if you are constantly like being for me, it's very oppressive. Like when sometimes I'm spending a time with the people who have turned on sound notification, I feel like, wow, something is alarming there. And the phone then is like grabbing your attention, giving you like the sign that, oh, there's something wrong, maybe you have to check it. And then you have the red notification, which is even the other layer of telling to your subconsciousness that something wrong is happening there. So even though you are even more into checking what's there, and then you're losing your time in this infinite scroll, and then 20 minutes of your life it's being stolen. So it's good to take care and to have control over your phone. Turn off notification, then you can even delete some social apps from your smartphone so you don't have that easy access to them, and check them just only when you eventually really need it. Check it on your computer. And then, which is like the last step, you can also switch the color on of your display on your smartphone. You can change it to the black and white. And of course, if you are taking a lot of pictures, it might be problematic. But it's really interesting because I've been using this function for a long time already, and I'm not triggered by the colors of the interface, and I'm not triggered. And actually, the phone became really boring for me. And also, what was really beneficial, that that reading books became easier for me, because there was no such a contrast between like a smartphone and book. Smartphone, which is like a lot of colors, overstimulated, and then eventually, if you have to pay attention and focus on the reading on the book, especially if you want to reach the stage of deep reading, it's much easier, much faster to reach the state. So there are a lot of benefits when it comes to having control over your digital activity, not being controlled by it.
Super interesting that you also have your own life case study examples in terms of this black and white screen and reading. Is really interesting, for the brain. I guess this is interesting, to run away from the on-demand world and doom scrolling situation that is.
Actually, all the cases and all the software and everything, I test first on my own, and I see if it works, if it's how is it? I'm making some notes, how do I feel? So just to make sure if I want to introduce this process to the other people, what kind of emotion came out and how to, help to deal with them. Mm. Because it's a process of change and it's not easy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's very beneficial. It's it's a really huge game changer.
Yeah, I really respect and appreciate your dedication, and this is something to some of us can be inspired. But I would also add that if you hear this and you feel it might be too much right now, this is the step by step you can change something. And as the complexity of the climate, the environment, the internet, generally speaking, each of us is, if starting to do some part, it makes element of this change. So even small, or even awareness is the first step to be aware, because people who are listening to us are highly engaged in the way towards to be better, to civil society to thrive. So the guilt is something that we want to fight with, and we want to do something about it.
But I just like I said, and I think I pointed out multiple times that I don't want to make anyone feel guilty, but I would rather maybe feel kind of an anger that some people create system and some people create
oppression.
Yeah. And like set up our boundaries in a way that we do not gonna play this game anymore. Now we're gonna take care of ourselves first of all, and then of our community.
This sounds like a good closure, but I have the last that actually links kind of, let's stick to this anger, if you would get the chance to create a digital ecological online tool or element of infrastructure, pure, no greenwashing situation, but only one, focus on one particular activity or some technical thing, what would it be?
Actually it's my dream, and I hope to one day to bring it to the reality. I think about the new way of designing interfaces, because nowadays how we interact with the internet is a very limited. This infinite scroll. It's like one-way scroll where you actually getting used to this perception of linear reality, but actually our world is totally different. It's very broad and
it's horizontal.
Yeah. And also, I really would love to implement some kind of a Buddhist and happiness assumption for designing interfaces in a way they are not addictive. They are taking care of the time you are spending with them. They are actually uplifting you emotionally. Something that could, make us feel better, but not spend too much time online, and rather that trigger us to looking for more connection in the real world with our nature, with our community, that, totally switch this model of stealing our time, but rather saving our time and give it for better purpose rather than simply scrolling.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting and digging dive.
We could go even deeper.
I know that we can go under the sea where those cables are. So deep we could go in terms of talk. Thank you so much. It was wonderful, and
thank you so much for the invitation once again.
Looking for more resources in topics like countering disinformation, cybersecurity, personal and organizational resiliency, building positive narratives, or media literacy? Visit the Hive Mind platform, an online hub with free content, tools, online courses, and ability to connect with digital activists across the globe. Embrace the power of community with Hive Mind.